Let's kick this video off by looking at Gengar up against Luxray, and we are both going to trade some fast attacks before my opponent switches into Charizard. That's great for me. I already want to switch into Gyarados because I don't want my Gyarados to line up against Luxray, and Gyarados with Aqua Tail, its new Community Day move, lines up great against Charizard. So we actually take a second Dragon Claw there. I do a little under tapping on my Aqua Tail, but they shield it anyways, which is actually great for me. I want damage on this Gyarados because I don't want their Luxray to farm me down. We're going to beat them to another fast move. We finish Charizard off with Aqua Tail before Luxray comes in and finishes us off. I bring in Gengar because now they have to shield because they're going to lose CMP. Then I switch to Machamp. I'm thinking maybe it is a crunch coming from this Luxray. It is a wild charge, so Machamp's going to take a ton of damage, but their defense is going to fall, and their last Pokemon is a Machamp. We are Gengar with 2 shields after they punch down my Gengar here, so there's absolutely nothing that their Machamp can do, and Gengar is able to seal the deal. What is up, everybody? I'm NoLucksGiven, and today we are here to look at an Ultra League Premier Cup team that almost anybody can play. It is super accessible, super easy to pilot, and also super effective in the Ultra League's Premier Cup. Now, the reason that I think this team is super accessible, which I'll just touch on a little bit first, but Gengar and Gyarados were our previous Community Day Pokemon, so they should be pretty easy to obtain. You should have a lot of candies for them, and hopefully you've already evolved one of each with their exclusive movesets, Shadow Punch and Aqua Tail, respectively. Now, if you haven't, then obviously this isn't a super accessible team for you, and I don't recommend evolving these Pokemon and spending your elite TMs on them. You are best off waiting for December unless you really want to play in the Premier Cup in the Ultra League this season, but if you want to do that, there are some other options that you can play. At the very end of this video, I am going to be talking about replacements for some of the Pokemon in this team, but I do think that this team is really accessible. Hopefully you evolved some of those Gengar and Gyaradoses during Community Day. Now, as you may know, I write about Pokemon Go Community Days for GamePress.gg, and in that article, in addition to a breakdown of the featured Pokemon saying how it does in both PvE and PvP, one thing that I include in there is PvP ready CPs, and this is a feature that I've been putting in the articles for a little bit now, but I think that it is super important if you're not super sure where your interest in PvP lies, because if you've been following those tips in my Community Day guides, then you might already have this team ready to go, and that is why specifically I think that this team is super accessible. So Community Day stocks you up with a bunch of Pokemon and a bunch of candy, and if we look at my Gengar article from July, we'll see that it says for Great League Haunter, look for Ghastly with like 889 to 932 CP and below. For Great League Gengar, 584 to 637, and then Ghastly for the Ultra League Gengar, we're looking for Ghastly that are 977 to 1065. So using those CP values, and you might want to check it with our CP calculator as well, but you might be able to just evolve a Ghastly on Community Day and have it be basically at that CP cap for Ultra League or Great League with very few power-ups required. And I did that same thing for August Magikarp Community Day as well. For Gyarados in the Great League, you are going to want 79 to 117 Magikarp, and then for Ultra League Gyarados, you are going to want 129 to 200 CP. So I was able to make this team with very, very limited Stardust investment. The third Pokemon in this team to complement Gengar and Gyarados is Machamp, and while Machamp hasn't quite had its own community day, Machamp has been featured in a number of Pokemon Go events this year and in years past, so you should have a bunch of Machamp candy lying around, but it was at the top of the attackers tier list on GamePress for a long time, so if you've already spent all of your Machamp candy, there is still a way to get a pretty cheap Machamp on the cheap. Wow, okay, I said cheap twice. I guess that's not really a tongue twister. There we go. So the way to get a cheap Machamp is to sell seashells by the seashore. No, it is to ask people if they have Machamps or Machokes that they can trade you. So once a Machoke is traded, it will cost 0 candy to evolve, and that's actually the same for Haunter as well, though with the community day going on, that's a little bit more difficult to kind of nail down, but this can save you 100 Machamp candies and just make this team even a little bit more accessible. If you are asking people for Machamps or Machokes in trades, you probably want to pinpoint some Machamps or Machokes that are around 4,000 Stardust to power up. Anywhere from 6,000 to 4,000 will probably fall in a good range, but 4,000 Stardust will guarantee that they evolve below the 2,500 Ultra League cap, so that's probably what you are going to want to look for. But again, a higher level one, even so, can save you even more dust. And if they happen to evolve over 2,500 CP, well then you got yourself another raid attacker. That's the worst case scenario there. So Machamp is pretty good, and those are the reasons I think this team is really accessible. In this video, I'm going to be showcasing some battles for this team. I'm going to talk about the individual Pokemon now, and just showcase some battles and show each Pokemon's strengths and talk about their weaknesses a little bit as well. Then I'm going to showcase an undefeated run from rank 6 all the way up to rank 8 in the Go Battle League. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about some replacements for this team if you don't quite have Gengar, Gyarados, and Machamp. What are some other Pokemon that you can play? So let's dive into that now. Let's start by looking at the strengths and weaknesses of our leading Pokemon, and that is Gengar. Gengar, with its Community Day move, Shadow Punch, is super strong, and I'm going to be running Gengar with a full Shadow moveset. All Ghost-type moves, Shadow Claw, Shadow Punch, and Shadow Ball, all Shadow across the board. Gengar is a really strong leading Pokemon because he's super frightening, and that's not just because he is a Ghost-type Pokemon. Gengar's Shadow Balls are super scary, and they can basically one-shot almost anything in the Ultra League. So why do we care about Shadow Punch, Gengar's Community Day move? It's strictly because it is cheaper on energy, so it is really good for baiting shields because people are afraid of that Shadow Ball. And I've talked about this a lot in previous videos where I've talked about how annoying Haunter is to play against in the Great League. Well, now with Community Day, Gengar has access to that same Haunter moveset, Shadow Claw, Shadow Punch, Shadow Ball, Shadow All, and it is going to put the fear into the hearts of some of its opponents. So Gengar is really good against fighting type Pokemon because it's got a triple resistance to fighting type damage. It's also good against fairy types and grass types because it can resist their damage as well. Its main weakness is going to be ground type attack, so if you see something like Swampert, you'll want to get out of there. And then of course the big weakness for Gengar is anything normal type. For the Ultra League, that is basically just Snorlax, but if you see a Snorlax, you do not want your Gengar to be matched up against it. So let's take a look now at one of Gengar's better matchups. This is Gengar up against Blaziken, a fighting type Pokemon. So like I said, we are going to build up to a Shadow Ball before going for a Shadow Punch. my opponent goes for a Blast Burn, and we are going to have to shield that before throwing a Shadow Punch. They shield that, and then we build up energy again and go for another Shadow Punch. At this point, my opponent is going to shield this too, and then their health is so low that I can just actually go for a Shadow Punch here, no bait, and take them out. So now we have won the lead advantage, and we are up a shield on my opponent, and we actually take out half of their Rosalia as well. So Gyarados can come in and pretty easily clean up this game just from the huge advantage that a Gengar lead was able to generate. My opponent probably could have tried to switch in some capacity, but we definitely had a great lead, and that is, yeah, that's just a huge leading example where Gengar shines, and my opponent gave up at the end of that battle. Here is an example where Gengar is not so good though. Oh, that's right, I forgot. That was a 5-0, so had to keep that in the video there, got a Mudkip, but here is an example where Gengar is not so good. It's not good against Swampert, so I'm going to pretty quickly switch out over into Gyarados here. Gyarados is our safe swap option, as we'll talk about more in a second, and my opponent isn't going to switch out. So this does also show why Gyarados is such a good safe switch. My opponent doesn't really have a Pokemon that they want to bring in to take our Gyarados down. So we are just going to go for some fast move damage here on the Swampert, and they actually beat us to another Hydro Cannon. I just let my Gyarados go down there, and then I bring in Machamp. My opponent is then going to bring into Venusaur, so I switch to Gengar, and after we shield this Frenzy Plant, you'll see the error of my ways. Eventually, yes, my opponent switches into their Snorlax, and now my Gengar is stuck up against a Snorlax, and there's nothing you can do. Some people will run Focus Blast or Sludge Bomb, Sludge Wave maybe, on Snorlax, or on Gengar, sorry. And that will give Gengar some play against Snorlaxes. Really though, what you should do is just not switch into your Gengar if you don't know all of your opponent's Pokemon, because them countering your switch with a Snorlax, they now just have so much energy over me, and now they're going to be able to body slam down my Machamp, and there's really nothing that I can do. They've won that game. So GG's to my opponent there. That is, you know, Gengar can win so many leads across the board. Really the only things that you have to worry about are that Swampert and that Snorlax, both of which were on my opponent's team. So that's a little bit unlucky, but that's Go Battle League. I also probably could have shielded my Gyarados, and we'll talk about that now. So Gyarados is one of the best safe swaps in the Ultra League, in my opinion. Gyarados is a really, really strong Pokemon, and there's very few things that punish it. We saw in the opening battle my opponent was running a Luxray on their team, and there are Magnezones, there are Electivires, there are Luxrays in the Ultra League Premier Cup, but for the most part people do actually lead with those Pokemon, which even makes Gyarados a better safe swap still. So I already have a bunch of videos on my channel on Gyarados and why it is just a good Pokemon in the Ultra League proper, but with Aqua Tail, as I pointed out again in that Game Press Community Day guide, Aqua Tail just makes Gyarados so much more powerful because Gyarados mostly relies on the damage from its fast move to deal most of its damage, but Aqua Tail is such a cheap charge move that it allows Gyarados to attack from another angle. So Gyarados is really one of the best safe swaps in the Ultra League Premier Cup, and here in this battle we are up against a Snorlax. So I'm going to safe swap into Gyarados, and my opponent meets that safe swap by switching into Poliwrath. So this is pretty good for me. I guess my opponent didn't want Poliwrath to be up against Gengar, but that's even a fine matchup for my opponent, so not super sure on this one. We go for an Aqua Tail, then we go for a Crunch on my opponent, and my opponent makes a pretty... Oh, actually, they do go for an Ice Punch here, so that one's going to get me. But then I believe my opponent... Right, they're going to shield this Aqua Tail, so that's fine, but then they go for a Dynamic Punch and use a bunch of their energy here. So basically for a safe swap Pokemon, you get a little bit of an energy lead on your opponent, and then the idea is to use shields to preserve switch advantage. So now my opponent has brought in their Snorlax. We're actually on even shields for my opponent, so this is fine. But the idea is now that we are even shields, but I have the switch advantage. So when my opponent switches into Scissor, I'm going to be able to switch into Gengar. And I make sure to switch in at an opportune moment so that I get an Iron Head and not a Night Slash from my opponent's Scissor. So that was a little bit tricky on my part still. But the main thing is that now I ensured that my Snorlax, or that my Machamp, wasn't locked in against Snorlax. So we saw how poorly that went for me in the previous battle. But this time I'm able to safe swap into Gyarados, use shields to preserve a lead advantage, or actually gain a swap advantage, and then line up my Machamp against my opponent's Snorlax. So you can do that against most of the things that your opponent will bring in to counter Gyarados. And here's actually my opponent leading with Gyarados, so this one is a little bit different. I'm going to deal some damage to Gyarados before bringing in the Gyarados of my own and firing off a Crunch on my opponent's Gyarados. So they're going to go ahead and shield that Crunch, and then they actually fire off with a Twister here. That deals a decent amount of damage to my Gyarados, and then I'm going to use a shield to make sure that my Gyarados doesn't go down. So again, I'm even shields with my opponent. This is a pretty good position, and then my opponent brings in Dragonite, and I don't yet know their last Pokemon, but I'm going to bring in Gengar, and we actually were able to get all of their shields with Gyarados. So Gengar is able to take down that Dragonite, and then we are able to build up to just barely another Shadow Ball as they attempt to farm me down, and we take out the Charizard as well. So there is just a little bit of what Gyarados can do, but like I said, you are definitely going to want to use those shields heavily when you safe swap if you need to maintain switch advantage. If your opponent has a Snorlax, obviously switch advantage is going to be super important. You saw in one of those games I was able to sweep with Machamp. Sometimes you sweep with Machamp if you identify that Gengar is no good. Sometimes you sweep with Gengar if you identify that Machamp is no good. My last opponent, they are running an all-flying type team, though Machamp does have some coverage against flying type Pokemon as well. One of the reasons that Machamp is the best fighting type Pokemon in the Ultra League, and by far the most played, is because of Rock Slide as one of his coverage moves. So Machamp, a fighting type Pokemon, is really able to threaten these flying types, and we'll take a look at some good Machamp games here now. So we're up against a Lucario. My opponent has to switch, and they switch over to a Lapras, which is generally a pretty decent safe swap in the normal Ultra League. But in this league, we're allowed to run fighting type Pokemon because they're less punished by Giratina and Cresselia, so Machamp can really come out and play. So Machamp is kind of a bodyguard for Gengar. But Gengar plus Machamp make up a pretty good power duo, and here my opponent brings in a Charizard to try to answer the Machamp because their other Pokemon's Lucario, and Charizard goes down to an easy Rock Slide double, super effective there. So then my opponent goes back into the Lucario. Again, the Lucario would have been weak to my fighting type move, so they definitely didn't want to bring that back in. Went for Charizard and thought I was going to bait, but I did not. So they bring in the Lucario now, and we trade shields. They are going to Shadow Ball down my Gengar, but then Machamp can come in and give it one punch, and it is dead. Didn't even have to use my Gyarados in that game, just was able to use Machamp as an excellent bodyguard. Here we're up against a Ferrothorn, which, again, Gengar doesn't really have to sweat. Gengar is going to take not very effective damage from Grass-type Pokemon. Then my opponent switches in their Togekiss, and we don't have to care about Togekiss either, so we are going to go ahead and get all of my opponent's shields here, and then we just have to deal with this Togekiss, and we should be in a pretty good position in the match. So now we're actually up a shield, and we bring in Gyarados to farm the Togekiss down. Then my opponent brings in the Ferrothorn, and this is a pretty even matchup across the board. They will be able to resist our Dragon Breaths here, so we're not doing too much work. And then my opponent brings in Snorlax. So once my opponent brings in Snorlax, then you got to realize, okay, well, my Machamp is going to be pretty good against the rest of their team, and that's a pretty common composition. 2 Pokemon weak to Machamp, and then a Togekiss. So all you have to do is deal with that Togekiss, which my opponent very generously offered up to us, to our Gengar, and I'm actually going to use this Gengar as a sacrificial swap there, just to take one of my opponent's Snorlax's body slams. And yeah, my opponent's got some energy on their Ferrothorn, but this is going to be no problem for Machamp, and we're actually going to defeat them with a shield left there. So that is why Machamp is so strong. It's able to really counter a lot of the switches that your opponent will bring in to try to deal with Gengar. You saw that my opponent didn't just switch into Snorlax. They were kind of in a tough spot there. They knew that if they switched into Snorlax, that I would probably switch into Machamp. So that's what should have happened in that game, and can kind of make you see how no matter what my opponent did, they really didn't have a shot there. They lost the lead, so I'm either going to have switch advantage throughout the rest of the game, or I'm going to be able to counter their Snorlax switch-in or deal with their Togekiss switch-in. So we were pretty well set up against their team, and that's why I think this team is pretty good. So there's kind of the strengths and weaknesses of all of the Pokemon in this team, how to overcome them a little bit. Now we are going to look at my undefeated run from rank 6 to rank 8. So in the first game in this first set, we are going to be up against a Glysaur. So this is not something that I want my Gengar to be up against. Glysaur can really quickly charge out these Night Slashes, so I am going to want to switch, and I'm going to switch over into Gyarados right when my opponent uses a Night Slash, get a little bit of damage on my Gyarados, but take away some of the energy that my opponent's Glysaur has. So then my opponent brings in an Alolan Executor, and I am going to have to shield these Seed Bombs. They are neutral Seed Bombs. We fire back with an Aqua Tail. It's double resisted, but I thought maybe my opponent would match my shield here. And then we're just going to take another Seed Bomb. We're out of shields. Like I said, I'm willing to use all of my shields to make sure that we win this switch advantage when I safe swap with Gyarados. And now my opponent brings back in the Glysaur, so this is going to allow me to bring in Machamp against Glysaur. And when they switch to Swampert, I immediately switch over to my Gengar, fire off a Shadow Punch, immediately followed by a Shadow Ball. First one to get their shield, second one to basically kill them, and they are going to be able to take me out here, but then I'm going to be able to farm down the Swampert, and I should be able to throw a Rock Slide pretty quickly at the Glysaur, and Machamp was obviously able to resist the Night Slash of the Machamp. So there you go. We lost the lead in that game, but Gyarados was able to work wonders as a safe swap. As you saw, none of their team was really good against Gyarados. This is actually a pretty similar leading matchup. We have a Pokemon that can quickly throw down some Night Slashes, so we're going to get Gyarados in there yet again. And they switch to Swampert, so yet again my opponent switches into a losing matchup to counter my Gyarados. It's actually Shadow Swampert here too, so they're going to take a bunch of damage. We're going to take a little bit of damage as well. My opponent's probably going to be pretty likely to use some shields to protect their Swampert, try to force me into using shields. I'm fine using some shields here. We're going to go for Aqua Tail. I have to, no, that actually doesn't get their shield. Okay, so again, we're down a shield, but we have gotten switch advantage on my opponent. So they bring back in the Scissor. We now go even with them in shields yet again. They now have a bunch of energy, but that's totally fine because we are bringing in Machamp. So these Night Slashes, we can shrug those off, and when they switch into Blastoise, again, we're going to go into Gengar. I'm going to bait with this Shadow Punch and then try to hit him with a Shadow Ball. So the bait is going to work. Let's see, I am going to shield this Hydro Cannon. And then I think I build up a little bit more energy, even so, over farm on this Blastoise. But I think my opponent's going to have a Night Slash basically ready to go for me. Yeah, they're going to have a Night Slash with this Scissor. That's not going to be a big deal. They're going to take down my Gengar, and then Machamp is going to come in and punch it down. So that, again, is an example of how you want to play this team. Lose the lead, win the safe switch, and then maintain switch advantage to get Machamp and Gengar lined up where they need to be against the right opponents and identify the weak spots in your opponent's team. This team is normal Executor, switch over to Empoleon, so we're going to bring in our Bodyguard here, Machamp, but I don't shield the Drill Peck, so we actually take a ton of damage there, and we are potentially going to lose this safe swap. Yeah, they shield, so we lose this safe swap, and my opponent uses shield to beat us. So we only really have one option here. Bring in Gengar and begin the farm down. We gotta hope that our last Pokemon, or rather, our opponent's last Pokemon is also weak to Gengar. So they show us a Charizard, we punch it, and they actually don't shield. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to Gyarados. Gyarados has Crunch, which it can really use to threaten this, not Alolan, I'm so used to saying Alolan egg, this normal Cantonian egg's life. So we're going to go for a Crunch, take that out, and then my opponent brings in Charizard, and I know this is just a Dragon Claw, so I can survive this. Our Aqua Tail is definitely going to get my opponent's last shield now that Charizard is on his last breath, and then Gengar could come in and finish us off if they did decide to shield, but they knew the writing was on the wall, and they're going to let Charizard go down there. Now we have another game against Charizard. So we're going to build up some energy with Gengar, and then I actually safe swap into Gyarados. I know that Charizard has a really cheap move in Dragon Claw, so I don't really want to play games with that. I'm just going to switch over into Gyarados and see what I can do with this kind of switch, and this winds up being pretty good for us. Gyarados with Aqua Tail can now actually deal a lot of consistent damage to these fairy-type Pokemon in a way that it couldn't before. So Ancient Power is going to take me down, and then Gengar is going to farm it down, and we are up a ton of energy over my opponent here. They actually bring in Clefable as their last Pokemon, so it is the typical Charizard double Charmer team, but none of their Pokemon line up really well against Gengar. What I thought they were going to do there is bring in Clefable, burn my energy, and then use that to bring Charizard back in and take out Gengar, and that's basically what they wind up doing here. But now we're in just a pretty good spot. We're Machamp with a shield advantage over Charizard. They're going to be able to get some Dragon Claws off on us, but we're going to be able to threaten their shields with just my Cross Chops because Machamp just is such a powerful Pokemon. We actually shield a Blast Burn there. Don't know quite why my opponent went for Blast Burn, but we're going to be able to take them out regardless with another Cross Chop and win the game. So there's an interesting team, the Charizard double Charmer, but it is important to remember that Machamp has Rock Slide, so against that team, lining up Machamp against the Flying type Charizard is actually the way that you want to go, believe it or not. Now we're up against a Slowbro, and this is a pretty cool game, but my opponent switches into Snorlax. Not a super great move from my opponent, just allows me to switch into Machamp freely, and I did give them a little bit of extra energy, but now Machamp's going to be able to come in and easily beat this Snorlax. I do have to be careful of the Slowbro in the back, though. I am going to shield my Machamp. I'm not sure how much damage that Body Slam was going to deal, but I wanted to make sure that I could survive a confusion and get to a Rock Slide against my opponent's Slowbro. If I took that Body Slam, I just would have been dead to that confusion and I would have lost a bunch of my energy. Then I safe swap into Gyarados. My opponent safe swaps into Tangela, or Tangrowth rather, and I know that they're going to have Rock Slide on their Tangrowth, but I think that I just want to take this Rock Slide and let my Gyarados take some damage, let my Gyarados go down a little bit. I'm now going to bring back in my Machamp because I know I'll have just enough health to get to a Cross Chop here. We take out the Tangrowth, and then the Slowbro comes back in, and we actually die at the same time. Gengar takes a huge amount of damage from a confusion, so this was actually a 4-0-1 on the first set here. I did go undefeated. I didn't get defeated, but that also wasn't quite a win, so there is a 4-0-1 to start off with this first set here. In this second set, we are going to be up against a Torterra and I guess I just went for a Shadow Ball there. Yeah, sometimes I go for a Shadow Ball. You gotta go for a Shadow Ball every once in a while to keep your opponents honest, and that opponent was not being honest. They were not shielding, and then they wind up shielding the Shadow Punch anyways, so that winds up super great for us. They bring in Swampert, take down the Gengar, then we get to bring in Gyarados, and Gyarados is going to be able to take down my opponent's Swampert here with the Aqua Tails. We're actually going to get both of their shields now to protect this Swampert, and I think I just let Gyarados go down. Oh, Gyarados actually... Wow. Okay, so Gyarados survives. My opponent switches into Blaziken, and we Aqua Tail the Blaziken, which then allows me to switch back into Gengar, which is incredible. I'm going to shield their Blaze Kick, and then I can even Shadow Ball my opponent's Swampert here. So yeah, that was a pretty good game here. Kind of making a little bit of a fool out of my opponent there, but... GG's, we just had the perfect read on everything they were doing that game. So Typhlosion is a fire type, but it's got Shadow Claw as a fast move, so I quickly switch over into Gyarados. My opponent probably should have matched this switch. They stay into Typhlosion, and I know it's Solar Beam, but that's a risk I'm willing to take. I really don't want to shield a Blast Burn there, so I'm fine just letting my Gyarados go down to a Solar Beam because that is just such an expensive move. I bring in Machamp, I try to farm it down. They are going to get to a Blast Burn before I can do so, and then they bring in the Clefable. So I am going to want to switch over into Gengar, and now I'm Gengar against Clefable plus their Swampert. So we are going to go for the Shadow Ball, and we deal a huge amount of damage onto Swampert now. Now we can just go for these Shadow Punches, and they are going to have to shield these Shadow Punches here. And I think, oh, okay, I actually do shield this Hydro Cannon, but then are they able to go for another one? No, we just barely take down the Swampert before it gets to another Hydro Cannon, which gives us the energy to Shadow Ball their Clefable and win the game with that Machamp in the back still. So yeah, pretty good work there with Gengar in that one. And Gengar does just win a lot of leads too, as you are seeing. It's just good against all of these grass type Pokemon. It's basically good against anything that isn't Swampert and Snorlax. So I really, really like Gengar as a leading Pokemon, and I really like Gyarados as a safe swap, and then I also just like Machamp. Machamp is great in the Ultra League. I do really, really like this team. As much as I am playing it because I'm just playing this team because I think it's a good, accessible team. I'm even playing these games right now, if you haven't noticed, on an alternate account of mine that is like level 35. Want to get it up to level or rank 7 so that it can get that Elite TM for the season rewards, as you might want to as well. So if that's your goal, you just want to get to rank 7 as quickly as possible, then using this team in the Ultra League Premier Cup might be the way to go for you. I talked over a lot of this game. I'm not sure how exciting it was, but it looks like we're 0 shields to 0 shields now and taking a Hydro Cannon. I don't think we'll be able to farm this Empoleon down. No, we are going to take another Hydro Cannon on our Gyarados here, and then our Machamp in the back is going to have to deal with their Magnezone, Shadow Magnezone. Okay, that's going down. So Cross Chop's able to take down Shadow Magnezone. Machamp can be a bodyguard for Gyarados too, as Shadow Magnezone would obviously really threaten the life of our Gyarados. Now we see a Shadow Dragonite, so some cool Pokemon for my opponents here. We're taking a ton of damage from the Shadow Dragonite. I have to shield this Dragon Claw. This isn't really a match that I love to be in. I think though, because it's a Shadow Pokemon, these Shadow Punches are going to be pretty decent, so I just go for a Shadow Punch here right before I die, and we're going to be able to get both of their shields. I switch over into Gyarados, and my opponent also has a Gyarados, so at that point I just want to bring in Gyarados to farm my opponent's Dragonite down or take damage from it. The fact that they switch to Gyarados, like, if people are switching into Gyarados against your Gyarados, they really are not punishing you here. I'm going to hold on to my last shield because I think that having a shield will be better than having a little bit of Gyarados action hanging on here. Aqua Tail isn't going to kill us too badly here. And then my opponent brings in their Shadow Dragonite, and they had a Dragon Claw ready to go. So I am going to have to shield that, but I do have a bunch of energy over my opponent's Escavalier. I do also have Gengar as a sacrificial swap, but I am going to be able to get to 2 Cross Chops before my opponent can really do anything to me here. Let's see, do I bring in? No, I don't even bring in the Gengar. I just counter farm it down, and that is enough to get the GG. We're going to look at one last battle here in my undefeated run, and yes, it is still an undefeated run. 901 is still undefeated, and this is what is going to get me to rank 8 now. You can see I got to rank 7 with the rating points to qualify for rank 8, but you still got to play your 5 games. So their Venusaur, they are going to switch into Stoutland. Not that great, but it might basically be Snorlax. I don't really know what Stoutland does. Looks like it's using an ice move against me, but if your opponent switches in an ice type or a normal type Pokemon against your Gengar, you bring him a champ and you show him what's what. So they're going to take a hefty cross chop to the face there, and then their Stoutland's going to go down. I imagine they'll bring in Venusaur now. No. Okay, they've had enough. And maybe you guys have had enough too. That is going to be it for the battles. I do actually want to talk about, though, before we go, some other options that you can play on this team. Because you might not have all of these Pokemon, and the goal of this video is to present what is the most accessible team in the Ultra League Premier Cup. So let's just talk about some alternative options to the Pokemon presented here. So first off, with Gengar as our leading Pokemon, there are some other options. We want something that can kind of deal with Machamps and fighting type Pokemon, something else that is a good lead. And there are some other Pokemon that I think are good leads. They're not super accessible. Aqua Tail is a Pokemon that we just had in the Enigma event. We also just had Bronzong featured in the Enigma event. Aqua Tail is a little bit rarer though, and Bronzong you will have to max out. I don't think you have to max out Aqua Tail, but you will have to max out Bronzong, and you'd also have to max out Skarmory. But any of those 3 Pokemon fill a similar role that provide good 2 options where you wouldn't have to change the other 2 Pokemon in the team. You lead with Aqua Tail, Bronzong, or Skarmory, and they're going to function pretty similarly, have a bunch of pretty similar leading matchups, bad against Swampert. They're fine against Snorlax, but good against fighting type Pokemon, Venusaur, bad against Swampert, so that kind of thing. The other thing that you can do is just play one of the 3 trio of starter Pokemon that you've seen probably a lot of in this video, but that's Swampert, Venusaur, and Charizard. Those are 3 really good Pokemon in the Ultra League Premier Cup. That's just a team. If you have Swampert, Venusaur, Charizard, you can just play that as a team. They will all also need their Community Day moves, but maybe you were playing back then and you weren't playing in July, you didn't evolve a Gengar to get the Shadow Punch, so maybe you have one of those 3. So there's some different options for the leading Pokemon that offer similar matchups to Gengar, but Gengar is definitely the best. To replace Gyarados as a safe swap option, you want to look at other Pokemon that would be good safe swap Pokemon. So you could play Charizard, and Charizard might even be better once it gets its Community Day Dragon Breath. It might be better as a safe swap in the Ultra League Premier Cup, though obviously that's not going to be relevant for this iteration of the Ultra League Premier Cup, maybe at the end of the season when they bring it back. One of the things that I like that Gyarados does is offers cheap coverage against Gengar, and by that I mean Crunch. So 2 Pokemon that we saw here in this video that have pretty good safe swap returns are Scissor and Glysaur. So both of those guys, like I said, are able to bring out pretty quick Night Slashes, and I think that makes them pretty decent safe swap Pokemon as well. There is Haunter, Honchkrow. But I do think that makes the team just a little bit weak to Charmers. And if Honchkrow is your safe swap option, they just bring in a Charmer, charm you down, and then you have to just make Gengar do a lot of work because Machamp is also going to be weak to those charming Pokemon. So I don't really recommend Honchkrow. 2 other Pokemon, though, that you can play in the stead of Gyarados. The first one is Snorlax, and Gengar, Snorlax, Machamp was a team played by Ryan Swag Tips to pretty good success. And yeah, that's just a really good trio of Pokemon. You got Snorlax to counter Gengars, Gengar to counter Machamps, and Machamp to counter Snorlax. So it's a pretty good trio that isn't quite fire, water, grass, but still winds up being really, really strong in the Ultra League Premier Cup. And then one other option that you have for this team, this is going to make the team significantly more expensive, and that is Lapras instead of Gyarados. So Gengar lead with Lapras and then Machamp in the back is a team that took FP Sticks to #1 on the global leaderboard. I believe that was the team that he was using when he got #1. So I like Gyarados as a safe switch a little bit more than I like Lapras, but that also might come down to play style. I have a lot of experience with Gyarados. I will mention that Lapras basically has to be maxed out in the Ultra League to really make good use of it. There's a little bit of an awkwardness there too, where it wants one exclusive move, so you either have to Elite TM a Lapras or TM away an exclusive move from one of your Lapras, either from its raid day or from the research breakthrough that has both Ice Shard and Ice Beam. But Lapras with exclusive moves isn't super hard to get. You can probably just ask people in your community and try to get one from trades as well. But yeah, that's another really good option for this team. The Gengar and Machamp make up a really good core that cover a lot of each other's weaknesses. So then just slotting something else into that can definitely work. For Machamp, you do have some options. You can play basically any fighting type Pokemon, but as you saw, that Rock Slide was able to do a lot of really good stuff throughout this video. The most basic swap would be Machamp for Lucario, but obviously Lucario is a lot rarer to obtain than Machamp, so that probably isn't something that you're really seriously considering. Lucario is going to be weaker against other fighting type Pokemon while packing neutral resistances to fairy and psychic type Pokemon. So that can make Lucario a pretty good addition to this team. Lucario has Shadow Ball, and Shadow Ball is pretty good. You can also play Hariyama, and Hariyama's coverage move is something Steel. Flash Cannon, maybe it's cheaper. I don't remember off the top of my head, but you can also play Hariyama, and that's got a Steel type move to threaten the Fairy type Pokemon, but it's not going to be able to do anything to a Charizard because Charizard will resist whatever that Steel type move is. You could play Blaziken, also would be better against Charmers because it will have a resistance, or it will take neutral damage from Charm because of its fire typing. I think two of the cooler replacements to this team would be Blaziken and then also Obstagoon. Obstagoon is definitely going to make you a lot weaker to the Charmers, so you'll be relying really heavily on Gengar to get that done. Obstagoon also has a double fighting type weakness, but Obstagoon does have coverage with Gunk Shot. A little bit less accessible. You can play Clefable in the third slot. I just think Clefable is a good Pokemon in the Ultra League. You will have to max it out though, but Clefable is pretty good against a lot of the things that you need a closing Pokemon to be good against. And if your opponent has some shields still, if they haven't fallen for your Gengar baits, well then Clefable doesn't really care about their shields either. You're just going to be charming them down. And if you don't like any of those options, or if you don't have any of those options, you can again play one of those three starter trio Pokemon that I mentioned. Really any three of those, Swampert, Venusaur, or Charizard, I think are all going to be good as the last Pokemon in this team. You might have to watch out a little bit if you are playing Venusaur. You'd have to watch out for Psychic type Pokemon, but that's the same if you're playing Machamp. If you're playing Charizard, I think that probably gives you the best coverage. You do maybe then have to watch out for Electric type Pokemon though. Those could be a little bit tricky, but like I said, people mostly lead with those, so maybe you're okay. And then if you are playing Swampert, Swampert and Gyarados are an interesting core, and I've played multiple teams with Swampert and Gyarados before on this channel, or multiple water type Pokemon. They do have completely different weaknesses, with Gyarados being weak to electric type attacks and Swampert being weak to grass type attacks. So there's not like a super big overlap with Swampert and Gyarados there, and you can actually play Gengar lead with Gyarados Safe Swap and Swampert Finisher in the Ultra League Premier Cup, and I think that's a pretty decent team. I hope that with all of these options, I have given you some team that you might be able to play in the Ultra League Premier Cup, and hopefully you will give it a shot. I think this team is really good if you have it, and if you don't have it, then make sure you stay tuned for December's Community Day recap, where you can evolve a few of these Pokemon, and check out my Community Day articles in the future and evolve some Pokemon for the leagues that they might be good for. I'll continue to give out those PvP ready CPs that you can just evolve and play with little Stardust spent. I guess I haven't really talked too much about this. You will need to move unlock all of these Pokemon. There's really no way around that. The one that matters the least is Gyarados, but it's only 10,000 Stardust to unlock anyways. Gyarados is a cheap candy and dust unlock, so who cares? But Machamp, you'll need to spend the 50k. Gengar, you will definitely need to spend the 50k because those other moves on them are super important. Hopefully that inspires you to play. That is all I'm going to have for this video. I don't really know what I have coming up next. I know I'm going to be continuing coverage of the Game Press Go Battle League Gauntlet pretty soon when I get that kicked up again and show you guys how we finished that season. And I might throw together a video of some Ultra League play on my account. Maybe I'll go for what is like the hardest team to play in the Ultra League, or what's the Ultra League team that you can't play. Something with some regionals and some exclusive moves, some things like that. So maybe that'll be something fun you can look forward to in the future. If you have any ideas for content, hit me up in the comments down below or over on Twitter, and leave me a like if you enjoyed this video, and of course subscribe if you want to see more. That's going to be it for me, guys, today. Thank you very much for watching. I'm NoLucksGiven. Peace!